Manicured nails dug into my skin. "Stay in the back kitchen, Elena," she whispered, her voice sharp with panic. "The important people are arriving, and you are not dressed to represent this family." I nodded, stepping back into the shadows as the grand ballroom doors opened. For years, my parents treated me like their dirty little secret, hiding me away while my perfect siblings were paraded in front of elite society. But tonight was different. The heavy glass doors slid open, and the evening's billionaire VIP guest walked in. He didn't greet the mayors or the CEOs. Instead, he scanned the crowd, his eyes growing cold as they landed on my parents. "Where is she?" he asked, his voice echoing through the silent room. My dad turned completely white. They thought they had hidden me perfectly, but they didn't know he was looking for me. My name is Elena, and at 26 years old, I had officially perfected the art of being invisible. To the outside world, my parents, Richard and Catherine Sterling, were the absolute pinnacle of high society grace and philanthropic perfection. They ran a multi-million-dollar real estate empire in the city, hosted lavish charity galas, and were constantly featured on the front pages of luxury lifestyle magazines. If you looked at their public profile, you would think they were blessed with the perfect family. My older brother, Sebastian, was a sharp-suited corporate lawyer who track-raced luxury sports cars on the weekends, and my sister, Isabella, was a polished socialite influencer whose upcoming wedding was already being dubbed the social event of the season. But if you looked closely at the family portraits hanging in the grand hallway of our estate, you would notice something strange. There were plenty of photos of Sebastian holding trophies and endless portraits of Isabella draped in designer silk. But me? I wasn't there. I was the ghost in the mansion, the quiet middle child who didn't possess the blinding ambition or the shallow vanity my parents valued above all else. Instead of corporate law or high fashion, I spent my time working quietly in restoration, fixing historical documents and antique books behind a desk. To my parents, this made me an embarrassment, a plain, unmarketable liability who didn't fit their carefully curated aesthetic. For 26 years, I accepted my role in the shadows, never imagining that the family's biggest secret was about to become the center of attention. The heavy bass of a live string quartet vibrated through the floorboards of the grand ballroom, signaling that the first wave of elite guests had officially arrived. Valets were parking a seamless line of customized sports cars and sleek black SUVs out front, and the air inside was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and top-shelf champagne. I was standing near the edge of the grand staircase, wearing a simple, unbranded navy dress, just trying to cross the hall to grab a glass of water. Suddenly, a sharp hand gripped my wrist. I winced as my mother's perfectly manicured nails dug straight into my skin, pulling me instantly into the shadow of a massive marble pillar. "What do you think you are doing out here, Elena?" she whispered, her voice a lethal mix of panic and pure rage. She looked me up and down with utter disgust, her eyes lingering on my lack of designer labels. "The important people are arriving right now, and you look like you belong to the cleaning staff. You are absolutely not dressed to represent this family tonight." Before I could even utter a word of defense, she gave me a firm shove toward the service corridor. "Go stay in the back kitchen until the event is completely over. Do not let any of our VIP guests see you." I nodded quietly, numbness washing over me as I retreated into the narrow service hallways. Peering through the tiny glass window of the kitchen doors, I watched the glittering crowd laugh and mingle, completely locked out of my own family's world. The atmosphere in the grand ballroom changed the exact moment the heavy, gold-trimmed glass doors slid open for the evening's main arrival. It wasn't just a regular guest walking through the entrance. It was Julian Thorne. No relation to us, but a man whose sheer economic power dwarfed our family's entire net worth. He was a ruthless venture capitalist, a literal titan of industry who held the financial future of our city in his hands. My father had been desperately trying to secure a massive partnership deal with him for the past 6 months, a deal that would either elevate our real estate empire to global heights or leave us drowning in unpayable corporate debt if it fell through. The moment Julian stepped inside, the lively chatter of mayors, tech CEOs, and high society icons instantly died down to a reverent whisper. My father immediately stepped forward, his face stretched into a practiced, sycophantic smile as he adjusted his tuxedo jacket. My mother quickly smoothed down her designer gown, nudging Sebastian and Isabella forward like prize cattle ready for evaluation. They fully expected a standard, highly polished high society greeting, complete with empty pleasantries and a firm, business-sealing handshake. But Julian didn't smile back. His tall, imposing frame stood frozen at the entrance, his sharp, calculating eyes completely bypassing my father's extended hand. He slowly scanned the glittering crowd of elites, his expression growing colder and more intensely disappointed with each passing second. It was immediately obvious to everyone in the room that he hadn't come here to negotiate a merger or drink expensive champagne. He was looking for someone specific, and whoever it was, they weren't standing in the main lineup. The silence in the grand ballroom was deafening as Julian Thorne stood at the entrance, ignoring my father's outstretched hand. The Titan took a step forward, his eyes locking onto my parents with an icy intensity. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice echoing sharply off the high marble ceilings. My father froze mid-smile, the color instantly draining from his face until he turned completely white. He cleared his throat nervously, exchanging a panicked look with my mother. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thorne," my father stammered, trying to regain his composure. "If you are referring to my daughter, Isabella, she is right here. Isabella, darling, come say hello." Isabella stepped forward with a practiced grin, but Julian didn't even look at her. "I know exactly who Isabella is," Julian said, his tone dropping an octave, sending a wave of visible panic through my parents. "I am not asking about her. I am asking about your other daughter, the one who actually runs the architectural restoration data for your entire firm. Where is Elena?" My mother's hand began to shake against her gown as she realized their perfect deception had completely failed. "Oh, Elena?" She lied smoothly, though her voice pitched a bit too high. "She couldn't make it tonight, Mr. Thorne. She's terribly under the weather and resting upstairs." Back in the kitchen, watching through the small glass window, my heart pounded against my ribs. Julian let out a cold, humorless laugh that made the surrounding mayors and CEOs shift uncomfortably. "Funny," Julian responded, pulling out his phone, "because my team tracked her secure digital login to the estate's main server just 10 minutes ago. I didn't come here to talk to you, Richard. I came here for Elena. Bring her out, or this deal is dead." The whispers among the guests grew frantic as my parents stood trapped under Julian's unyielding glare. They had no idea that 6 months ago, Julian had secretly acquired a massive collection of rare, damaged historical blueprints detailing the city's foundational infrastructure, blueprints his multi-billion-dollar expansion project completely depended on. The top restoration firms had turned him away, claiming the documents were entirely unsalvageable. But I had taken the job anonymously through my digital restoration portal. For months, working late into the night from my desk in the attic, I painstakingly restored his digital records, solved his architectural bottlenecks, and provided the exact historical data his engineering team needed to save the project from a catastrophic collapse. To Julian, I wasn't an embarrassing, plain middle child to be hidden away. I was the brilliant, anonymous mastermind who had single-handedly saved his global enterprise from a multi-million-dollar disaster. It wasn't until he demanded my real identity from the portal registry yesterday morning that he discovered Sterling was actually Elena Sterling, the daughter my parents completely omitted from their corporate bio. The horrifying realization finally hit my father's face like a physical blow. The daughter he had spent 26 years treating like an invisible liability was the only person on Earth who held the vital keys to Julian's empire. By trying to lock me in the back kitchen to preserve their shallow, high society aesthetic, my parents hadn't just insulted me. They had accidentally hidden the savior of the biggest venture capitalist in the country, and their entire financial future was now hanging by a thread. The tension in the grand ballroom was thick enough to cut with a knife. Realizing their entire financial empire was about to collapse, my father frantically signaled a nearby head waiter. Within seconds, the kitchen doors burst open, and a panicked servant practically dragged me out of the shadows and into the blinding chandeliers of the main hall. As I walked forward in my simple, unbranded navy dress, A wave of stunned gasps swept through the snobbish crowd of high society elites. My mother looked at me with venom in her eyes, silently warning me not to ruin their reputation, while Sebastian and Isabella stepped back as if my plain appearance might somehow contaminate them. But Julian Thorne didn't see a liability. The moment I approached, the cold, ruthless Titan completely bypassed my parents, his face softening into an expression of immense respect. He stepped directly toward me and extended his hand. "Elena Sterling," Julian said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent, frozen room. "It is an absolute honor to finally meet the brilliant mind behind my company's greatest triumph. Your work on our infrastructural restoration was nothing short of genius." He turned back to my father, his steel eyes turning instantly hostile. "Richard, you told me your firm was built on brilliant leadership, yet you hide your greatest asset in the back kitchen like a secret. I don't do business with fools who don't know the value of true talent." Right there, in front of my stunned family, Julian offered me a permanent executive partnership at his global firm, instantly shifting the balance of power forever. I looked at the executive contract in Julian's hands, then back at my parents, whose desperate, pleading eyes silently begged me to save them. For 26 years, they had hidden me away. Now it was my turn to walk away. "I accept, Mr. Thorne," I said clearly, stepping past my family without a single backward glance. Their empire crumbled that very night as Julian pulled his funding, leaving them to face the financial ruin they entirely deserved. Now, I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you do if your own family hid you away from the world just to protect their shallow reputation? Have you ever had to step out of it? Your thoughts below, and let me know which city you're watching from. Meanwhile, I'm leaving 2 other unbelievable stories on the screen that will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until the